Deliver talks at seminar organized by various forums like WIC, ICAI, BCAS, CTC, GSTPM on the topic of service tax and GST. Contributor to the columnar of GST law update in monthly newsletter published by the WIC of the ICAI. Contributor to the column of service tax law update in the monthly journal published by the CTC. He is author in the various publications of the ICAI Delhi, WIC of the ICAI, and BCAS on topic of the service tax and GST. He was co-opted a member of the Indirect Tax Committee of the Central Council of the ICAI for year 2010, 2012, and 2017, respectively. Was special invitee and a convener for IDT Committee of the GST Group. Chairman of the Indirect Tax Committee of the Chamber of Tax Consultants in the year 2009, 10, and 15. Is presently an advisor to the Indirect Tax Committee of the Chamber of Tax Consultants. I think so. Number of introduction required. So with this cloud, I requested Rajiv Bhai, please take the today's session as on the topic. Please, Rajiv Bhai.
I also request members, please do not unmute yourself in between. All the members are using two devices. Please unmute both the devices. Sorry, mute all the devices, please. Ajay sir, please.
તમારું આવે છે રાજેશ છેડા.
Rajiv Bhai.
Hello, Rajiv Bhai.
Hello, Rajiv Bhai. I think sir dismissed. Oh, I think sir has lost his connection.
Yes. Yes.
Let me try him. I'll call him.
Hello. Hello.
Yes, sir.
Hello.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Hello.
Yeah, sir.
Bhavin bhai?
Yes, sir. We can hear you. Hello.
Sorry,
yeah, we can hear you, sir.
Am I audible now? Yeah.
Yes, sir. Yes.
Okay. I'm sorry, I was not able to connect for last 1.5 minutes. Yeah.
Okay.
Shall I
sir,
start?
but we can't see your. Yeah, but we can't see your screen, sir.
You can't see.
Hello. તમારો ડિસ્પ્લે સ્ક્રીન બંધ થઈ ગઈ સર.
હવે
યા મેબી યા સર તમારો વિડિયો પણ ઓન કરી લેજો હવે.
હા.
યા
એક જ મિનિટ ભાવિન કરું છું.
Yes, sir.
Now you can see. Now you can see. Yeah. So respected convener Bhavin
Yes.
bhai, Yogesh bhai,
Thank you, sir. Please.
and all my dear friends at Ghatkopar. Ghatkopar being our own family members, when you speak before our family member, it's always a joy and pleasure. It's a very active study circle, Ghatkopar. I have seen one meeting every week of late happening, and that's for the benefit of the members. So really kudos to the convener and entire team of GSE for giving so many professional programs in the interest of the member in variety of the subjects. A friend Bhavin called me about a month back when he was planning on the topics on various subject of professional interest for the study circle. So he requested me to address one of the session on GST, something other than the normal one. By and large, now it is almost 4-year-old GST, and we have seen a lot of technical glitches, portal-related issues, interpretation issues. So many things are happening, procedural part issues, etc. Series of circulars, notifications. But I thought, let me take you through some of the code pronouncements in the GST and which are very relevant for the participants and to handle the issues which perhaps I am sure they must be facing while handling their assignments of their clients. That's why I have selected a couple of case laws. Those case laws are more related to refunds. We have seen a lot of refunds are concerned. It's getting rejected for one or other reason by the government. Sometimes it's a procedural issue, sometimes it's on a time bar, sometimes it's on an interpretation matter, as the case may be. So 1 or 2 decisions on that. The other is about the collection of interest on a late payment, section 50. The third is related to ITC mismatch, to a 3B related thing. These are the matters for which the people have gone to the high courts by filing the petitions. Then there are matters related to intermediary, the most complex transaction related to place of supply provision of intermediary and taxability issues related thereto. So these are the few decisions which I have selected, and one very important decision I also selected from a service tax regime. I think that is also very relevant, perhaps when the matter comes for a GST also to that extent. So friends, in the today's coverage, what I have taken you through is 8 decisions. 7 of them are GST and 1 of that is of service tax, which perhaps I feel is relevant. In the about 2 hours time which has been allotted to me, I'll take you through, I'll try my best to take you through the entire all the decisions. So one is on VKC, footstep and transfers through FCONs. These are on the ITC on input service related refund matters. Then material recycling and Dharmendra Jani. These are related to the constitutional validity of the intermediary services. I'm sure there is going to be a long litigation on this transaction of intermediary. Then there is a DY Bethel, that is regarding the recovery of ITC credit if it is not paid by the supplier, that is 2A 3B. Then levying of the service tax, GST on the freight on the import, although it is already taxed once on goods, there is a double taxation to that extent. So there is Mohit Mineral case, and then there is a LC infra case, whether SCN is really required to recover interest, or is it mandatory, or it is automatic by issuing simple letter, can you recover interest? And the last is the only one which is on the service tax, RSM food, and that is a takeaway parcels of the hotel, whether it is a sale of goods or sale of services. So these are the 8 case studies, friends. I would not like to waste the time on other thing. We'll let us start with the proceedings. The first to start with is a VKC Footsteps India Private Limited. Friends, this is a judgment of Gujarat High Court. I have taken all the recent judgment which have come in last about 1 year or so. Now here the facts of the case is the petitioner was concerned, he was a manufacturer and supplier of the footwear, and the GST liability on that was 5%, as against his raw material which he was taking and various input service, that was bearing the rate of 12%, 8%, etc. So now here the tax rate of input was higher than the tax rate of the output, and that's why this transaction was fitting in for the inverted duty structure refund, that is section 54(3) of the CGST Act. That's why they have a lot of surplus remain unutilized of the input tax credit, and there is a provision of section 53 subclause 3 whereby refund is being provided even in case of inverted duty structure. So this person was eligible for the same. This is section 54(3) is concerned. Now please mark the wordings of section 54(3) which I have reproduced. What it says that a person can claim a refund of any unutilized ITC. The word is highlighted in red color, unutilized ITC. Now your unutilized ITC can be on account of input, it may be on account of input service, or it may be on account of a capital good. Any one of these 3 is possible, the way the word says unutilized ITC. Fine. Now this particular party has applied for the refund claim on that side. Now the section 2 subclause 63 that define what is mean by the ITC. ITC means the credit of input tax. That is a simple definition of section 2 subclause 63 is concerned. And subclause 62 of section 2 define what is meant by input tax. Means tax charge on any supply of goods or service or both. Please mind the word input tax includes the tax charge on goods, service and both, including both. So in principle, the section 54(3) is concerned has never envisaged a difference between a service and goods or capital goods while taking the claim of refund by using the term unutilized ITC. However, we have a relevant rule 89(5) of the CGST rules which lays down the formula. It prescribes the formula whenever a person is applying for a refund of tax under inverted duty structure. The calculation formula says what is the amount of refund you will get. So for that, the formula is turnover of inverted duty structure. I am sure all the participants are very much aware of what is meant by inverted duty structure. The law defines your rate of duty on your output has to be lower than the rate of duty on your input. That is what inverted duty is concerned. Now here the formula says that your turnover of inverted duty multiplied by net ITC upon adjusted turnover divided by adjusted turnover. This is what the formula, and from that you have to deduct tax payable on such inverted duty supply, and that will be the amount of refund maximum can be granted when person applies under this provision of inverted duty structure. Now friends, the rules were concerned, this formula is concerned, every term of the formula was defined. The very interesting was the definition of a net ITC. See in this formula, net ITC I have highlighted in red color, and that is been defined. The definition as prevailing between 1st July 17 to 18th of April 2018, because it was amended from 18th April, it was using the word means ITC availed on input and input service. So there was no mention of capital good, but there was a mention about input and input service. This is in the rule. Okay, we have seen that section 54(3) has no such restriction, but in rule it was a net ITC which talks about only input and input service. Fine. The definition was amended from 18th April, and thereby they have omitted the word input service. So now you have only inputs. Okay, that is there on the statute. This is all done in the rule. And later on, with the notification number 26 of 2018, dated 13th of June 2018, this notification amends the definition, this new ITC definition, which was made effective retrospectively from 1st July 2017. So now the definition of ITC is concerned for the purpose of this formula net ITC only include credit on inputs, nothing more than that. So no input service, no capital goods. This is what the provision of 89(5) post amendment. How it impacts. So the petitioners there have challenged the validity of this rule 89 subclause 5, which was amended to the extent that it denies the refund of input tax credit related to input service, because now it is allowing only on the inputs. And section 54 subclause 3, we have seen the terminology or the words used unutilized input tax credit without any restriction about input service or capital goods. So this was the issue, constitutional validity, and it is say that the rule 89(5) is concerned, the validity of rule 89(5), because rule cannot go beyond the statute, the act. Rule cannot override the act. That was a issue basically involved in this writ petition file in case of BKC Footwear. Now, what are the observations of Honorable High Court? The Honorable High Court says that the formula which was prescribed in 89(5), and thereby government has eliminated the tax credit related to input service, which is contrary to section 54(3). 54(3) is a statute section and which provides the claim of refund for unutilized ITC. So when there is no restriction in the section, the rule prescribing only input service is going beyond the statute. And moreover, 54(3) also refer to both supply of goods as well as of services, and not only for goods as provided or amended in the amended rule CGST 89(5). Now further, the court says that the circular which was issued by the government on 31st of December 2018, the reference is given here, circular number 79. Now circular always clarifies the law. So with this circular, government clarified that the people who have applied, the assessee who has applied for the refund under inverted duty structure, their refunds will be restricted only for inputs only, credit related to inputs only. And so the formula which was given in 89 will not include ITC related to input service. This was a clarification. The Honorable Court says that the clarification given. Hello. Yeah. So the court says that the circular clarifying the in the month of December, and even the explanation 89.5 is concerned, it is ultra wires to the provision of section 54.3 is concerned, and there is no bar in the statute. Thereby, the circular is also need to be struck down, and rule 89.5 is also ultra wires to this thing. Now, this was the provision, and thereby, as per this Gujarat High Court, the inverted duty structure person, if he applies for the refund, he should be entitled for the refund of net ITC, which includes input as well as input services. Now, this matter has been further challenged in the Supreme Court because we have a contrary decision to that, exactly what VKC Footsteps has held. There is another decision now. It is on the same issue, but it is of a different High Court, and which is a Madras High Court, which has pronounced after this VKC Food is concerned, of course, in the difference of around 4 months in 2020 only. And that was in the case of a Trans-Tonally Story Afcons joint venture. There are about 4 to 5 parties involved in this petition is concerned. Now, here the facts of the case were by and large same. What it was there in VKC Food, it is slightly, some few additional points were also being taken up, but the issue more or less was involved with the same. So here what petitioners were doing, all the petitioners were having the issue related to inverted duty structure refund only, and they applied for the refund. The case of the petitioner is that they argued that they are entitled for the refund of entire unutilized ITC. That is what the Gujarat High Court has held, irrespective of the fact whether such credit is accumulated on account of inputs or input services. Mind well, in both the cases, nowhere capital goods have been dealt with, but input and input service is the only one, which is the point taken up in both the cases. Now here, the various issues which were laid down before the Madras High Court, Honorable Madras High Court, for consideration was whether section 54.3 subclause 2, it infringes Article 14 of the Constitution. That is one thing. Secondly, whether inputs, the meaning thereof as provided in section 50, the word input as used in section 54.3 encompasses both goods or service, or means how to interpret inputs for the purpose of section 54.3, what it envisages, whether it is goods or service or it is only goods. Third is whether input service can be read into section 54.3.3 as an exception to the general rule, and that is casus omnissus. So that was the third question. And last is whether provision to section 54.3 curtails the scope of main section. So main section is 54.3, and followed by there are 3 provisions there too. So whether provision is curtailing the scope, because provision never uses the ITC credit related to input, it's a plain ITC credit. So these were all the points which were there before Honorable Madras High Court in this petition. Then next is whether subclause 2 of section 54, which was related to refund, only prescribes condition to be eligible to claim refund, or it is a limit. So there are 2 kinds. 54 is concerned whether it is a condition for eligibility or whether it is a limit for claiming the refund, and whether section 164 is, which is empowering government to make a rule, whether such rule 89.5 amendment can be made, whether section 164 really empowers the government, or it's section 89, rule 89.5 is ultra wires to 54.3, that is already held in VKC Food. And the last is whether net ITC as given in 89.5 is to be read to include both input and input service. So these were the questions. By and large, if you look at the question, the sum and substance of all the 8 questions is that whether a refund will be eligible for both input service, or only it will be restricted to the ITC related to input. That is the sum and substance for this case also. Now, Honorable Madras High Court is concerned, has dealt with all the issue in detail. This is very, very exhaustive decision is there. Now here, first thing as regarding the Article 14. Now what is Article 14 of the Constitution? Article 14 provides that the state shall not deny to any person equality before the law or equal protection of the law within the territory of India. Now, by restricting the credit, the Honorable Madras High Court says that under the GST law, goods and service both are treated as similar. Of course, there are different aspects like taxabilities are concerned. Yes, they are differently taxed at a different rate. But otherwise, for this thing, both of them are treated similarly in certain respect. Then secondly, there is a non-conferment of a right of refund, which is there as per section 54, is concern of unutilized ITC of credit from the procurement of input service is not violated to Article 14 of the Constitution. So there is always equality of the law. There is a protection is also being given to the business. So Article 14 of the Constitution is concerned. It is not getting affected by these provisions. So that is the validity of this 54.3 is upheld to that extent. The next is further High Court says that the refund is a concern is a statutory right which statute has provided, and it's an extension of the benefit which is being granted by the statute only for unutilized credit and which is accumulated on account of the rate difference between input and output as per this section, which is a reverse charge, inverted structure duty. Okay. Now here this is concerned, it is a valid classification and valid exercise carried out by the legislative within their powers, and thereby, in other words, the court says that it qualifies and curtails only the class of a registered person, because if you look at section 54.3, it says that the refund of such unutilized credit shall be allowed in cases other than. So now one is a zero rated supply without payment of tax, and where the accumulated ITC on account of rate of input. So only restricted class the refund has been provided. So in other words, it qualifies and curtails not only the class of registered person who are entitled to refund, but also impose a source-based restriction. So on what you will get the refund, that which is the source of the refund entitlement, and consequently thereby the quantum thereof is also restricted. So Madras High Court's interpretation is completely different than what Gujarat High Court has held in VKC Food on the same matter. Further, so thereby, decision Madras High Court further says that as a corollary of this section Rule 89.5 as amended from time to time, that is in conformity of section 54.3.2. Actually, honestly speaking, the section 54.3 is not been amended. And how come Madras High Court held that? We have really failed to understand. Because if you read section 54.3 barely, it never has any restriction whatsoever of a refund of ITC related to input services. It has never used the word input tax credit on the goods. It has used the word input tax rate only. And input tax rate definition is concerned, it not only includes goods, it also includes the services portion. So the statement, or rather the decision of Honorable Madras High Court, with due respect, that Rule 89.5 as amended in conformity of section 54.3.2 is concerned is a corollary, and there is no necessary to interpret 89.5 is something which is little not digestible to that extent. And Honorable Court held that there is no necessity to adopt the interpretive device to reading down so as to save constitutionality of section 54.3 is concerned. By virtue of this, now what is the position? Now we have on a same issue two decisions. One in Gujarat High Court, which says that Rule 89.5 is concerned is ultra wires to, and circular to that extent was also ultra wires to the section 54.3, and inverted duty structure refund, whosoever is applying is entitled for entire refund, whether for goods or service both. But Madras High Court says other way around. Because of that, we have seen there are lots of notices have been issued by the department for rejecting the claim of the ITC refund to the tune of services is concerned. And most of the matters, we have a couple of matters argued on that point also. At the show cause level and even at the first appeal level, if you take the support of Gujarat High Court, the department is taking support of Madras High Court, and this litigation will go on and on unless and until this matter will be decided. For Mumbai, the position is very, very difficult for the reason that we have no decision on Mumbai High Court on this matter. So for us, jurisdiction High Court, so far not a single matter has been pronounced on this. So for us, it is otherwise we could have argued that our High Court says this, but unfortunately, as of today, it is not there. And if at all you are handling for your clients, this matter will take a lot of time or maybe perhaps the years to settle down unless this has been resolved by the Supreme Court, the apex court of the country. So this is about the refunds are concerned. If you have any issues on that, fine, because all my entire study circle today is only on the court decisions. If somebody has any issues, Bhavin sir, if somebody wants to ask or something in chat box, somebody has put up, you can post now, or otherwise I'll proceed to the next decision.
Yeah, someone has issue, please have a chat.
You can, Bhavin, we can put it this way. If anybody has any issue, can put in the chat box and you can convey it to me. That will be also fine.
One issue is there, Rajiv bhai. Can
Yeah.
this excess GST be adjusted against GST on the professional income?
No, you are talking about this inverted duty structure related matter, sir?
Yes, someone has asked in the chat box.
Yeah, see, in inverted duty structure, the
Yeah.
issue was the issue was involved that of refund. And if you are not claiming the refund, first of all, or the refund is rejected, the rejected portion again automatically get credited to your ITC ledger. And from there,
Okay.
obviously, you can utilization, there is no bar. Sir, if it is your input or input services, you can, ITC can be, there is no bar in utilization, sir, subject to your section 16 and 17 restriction once you comply. The issue is only about the refund. And gentlemen, in this inverted duty structure, a lot of people's money has been blocked because there is no liability. How can you use? I'll just give you a small example. Take your final product is having only 5% duty, and your raw material and input service has the duty at the rate of say 12% and 18%. Now, if you are selling your final product at 100 rupees, what is your output liability? 5 rupees. And suppose we go conservatively, your input and your input service amount is say around 70 or 80 rupees, whatever, because rest all is your administrative, finance and profit expenses. So, okay, let us say it is 70 rupees. So on 70 rupees, your rate of tax on which you have paid input service is 12 and 18. So let us around 8, 9 rupees will be ITC. Okay. Now you have liability of 5 rupees and your input credit of around 8, 9 rupees. So you will have surplus of 4 rupees. Now these 4 rupees you can carry forward. But for how long? Because you have no outside liability. There is no mechanism available for you. There is no liability. So that's why this inverted duty refund was being rather introduced in this section 54(3). If you don't get the refund, that just remain an asset in the books of account unless and until you have some other liability comes up in the future. So this entire cases are on account of that, and government is restricting by virtue of this meaning. I fail to understand when section doesn't provide, then why that input credit related to input service has been restricted, and that's why these two decisions are concerned.
Okay.
Yeah. Shall we proceed to the next step?
Yeah, one more query is there. Section 54(3)(2) is not allowing ITC on the capital goods and the ITC on the services. Is that true?
No,
that was the question.
Now see, if you read 54(3) subclause 2, the gentleman who is asking, I'll just read for the benefit of members. It says that where the credit has accumulated on account of rate of tax on inputs being higher than the rate of tax of output supplies, that is other than nil rated and exempt supply, except supply of goods or service or both, as may be notified by the government on recommendation. So what it says that this section of refund of ITC in case of inverted duty structure, this is a condition laid down that you will get this refund, you are eligible for this refund only when your rate of duty on your output is lower than your rate of duty on your input. That's all. Then there are provisions are there, and in the provisions it says that provided further no refund of unutilized ITC shall be allowed in case where the goods are exported, because for export you have a different provision. And further it says that provided also no refund of ITC shall be allowed if the supplier of goods or service both avail the drawback. There is no other condition apart from this. So as regarding the capital goods is concerned, of course, there is no bar directly in this section whatsoever. But in both the decisions, the matter was related to input and input service only. About input, there is no doubt. The issue involved was input services are concerned.
Okay, sir. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Now we'll go to the next issue, and the next issue is.
Can we take up the second part of the question, please?
I'm sorry.
You may ask directly, sir.
Yeah, You can
Mahendra, sir.
unmute. You can unmute him and you can ask. Yes.
Yeah, Rajiv sir, the question was like in case where the capital goods of ITC is not allowed in such cases, what
Yeah.
will be the stand when the actual sale of asset takes place?
No, Mahendra bhai, there are. Mahendra bhai, see what will happen is first of all, you have a capital goods on which ITC is availed by you, and your client is falling into inverted duty structure. The first is as per the decision, it is only the inputs ITC is allowed. That is what Madras High Court says. Gujarat High Court says even input service is allowed. So both the High Court, there was no issue about the ITC on the capital good. But if you read the section 54(3), there is no bar or there is no distinction between capital good, input or input service. They have only used the word input tax credit. And if you read the definition of input tax credit, it includes tax paid on goods and service both. And goods include capital good also. Fine. Now Rule 89 gives the formula. That formula is only having input service only. Fine. That is what the problem. Now you are going one step ahead. Now, if you apply and you take a claim for the ITC of capital good, then department is certainly going to reject. Okay, even on the input also they will be reject. Okay, then if you want to fight, you can fight. But the moment they reject, it is mandatory for them to transfer that rejected amount back to your ITC ledger. So you will get it created to ITC ledger, correct? And your utilization can continue because you will have something or other output liability coming up. So you can utilize. Now you have asked me one more question. What will happen when you sell that capital asset? Yes, when you are selling the capital asset, you know that you need to pay the tax on your supply, provided if you don't use the capital asset for some number of years, that is 5 years. That is what is been provided in the law. So I presume that you have used it for 3 years. So when you have used the 3 years and after 3 years you are selling, so whatever is your sell price, find out the tax liability. And secondly, alternately, they have given the mechanism that 4% for each quarter is the eligibility. So in 3 years, you have how many quarters? So you have 12 quarters. There are in 5 years, we will have 20 quarters. So 5% per quarter is the rate. So in 3 years, you have 60% of your ITC, you need not reverse. 40% you will have to reverse. That is based on the number of years you are holding the asset. That will have no effect whatsoever with this judgment is concerned.
I'm on the point that if I not getting the ITC, reading these judgments, these two judgments, if in future I'm not going to claim also the ITC, what would be your advice? What would be your advice in such case, whether I should claim the capital goods credit when it is not going to be allowed to me? And to take the chance of reversal, sir.
See, claiming the credit, there is no bar. Only thing you will have an issue that, say, the right to claim ITC is your right given under the law. You can claim. If you can't claim, it is gone. Fine. Now you are telling me what in future, Mahendra bhai, tomorrow the rate of GST may change here and there. Or possibly your client's nature of business also may change. If he start today, he's doing one product, tomorrow he may start second product, third product. Okay. Now there may be some liability, and everything may not be under the inverted duty. So that point of time, this carry forward ITC of capital good, you will able to utilize. No, because there is no bar in carrying forward the ITC.
Yes, sir. Yes, this point is well taken up. Yes, this point is to be considered with respect to what you have highlighted, that if he is going to change the nature of business and all, yes. But if the circumstances are as it is, like he is continuing with the same business, and if he is not going to get that refund in future, but the nature of business is such that he has to dispose of his assets every now and then after 3 or 5 years of time.
Correct.
Then what call should be taken up? That is the only question here.
If you are very sure about it, I don't know whether you have control over the policy of the government, because your business may remain same, but the rate of tax may be changed by government. So that is also possible. But anyway, I go by your this thing that nothing is going to change. In that case, there is no point in taking ITC, because to that extent, your depreciation amount is also going down and you are paying more income tax also to that extent. To that extent.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah. Now the next issue is about the material recycling. Now next two issues are related to intermediary. I will give a little background of this, then only you will understand. These are very important judgments related to intermediary services are concerned. When friends on intermediary, even under the old regime in service tax, many matters are pending in the tribunal. And I am sure this litigation on intermediary at least will continue for 5 years minimum in service tax era only. Thereafter, GST is the next step thereafter. Now, what is the issue and why all these things? The entire issue is because the intermediary was notified in service tax rather from July 2012 when we have a negative regime, and they have defined the term intermediary. The definition was amended from time to time to that extent to include goods also apart from services also. But the main point is it was from October 2014 the place of supply of the intermediary was shifted. First of all, what is meant by intermediary in layman's language, or rather in the law, it is a person who is bridging the two people. That means there is a X who is a buyer, there is a Y who is a seller. There can be goods or there can be service, but there are one buyer, one seller. And this intermediary is an in-between person who is facilitating or arranging the transaction between those two people, either of buying or of selling. So that is what the intermediary sum and substance is. Now, the place of provision of service rules provides prior to September 2014, it says that it is the location of the customer will be the place of supply. So if intermediary is located in Mumbai and his principal is located outside India, and then the transaction is say of procuring the orders either from Indian customer or from foreign customer, if the intermediary does that, and if he gets his service charges in form of commission from his foreign principal located anywhere in the world, then the place of supply is the location of the customer which was located outside India, and that's why there was no service tax liability and it was an export of service. This was the position up to 30th of September 2014. From 1st of October 2014, government has changed the place of provision of service rule related to intermediary, and they have changed the place of provision as the location of service provider. And as a result of this transaction which was export of service turned out to be a transaction liable for service tax. Those days the rate was 12%, 14%, 15%. So that was straight away a hit. Now in GST, when it was introduced from 1st of July 2017, we have section 12 and section 13 of the IGST Act, which are determining place of supply for the services. The section 12 is concerned is determining the place of supply for the transaction is between the service provider and service, means supplier and receiver, whether it is supplier and receiver of service, both are located in taxable territory. So both are then in India, then section 12 is applicable. But if either of these two are in outside India, say either provider or receiver, any one of these two are outside India, then you have to go to section 13 of IGST Act. Now what 12 section says that, suppose Mahendra Bhai is concerned, is my principal, but Mahendra Bhai is located in Gujarat and I am his intermediary located in Maharashtra, and both are in India. So both are in India. In that case, section 12 is applied. I book a order for Mahendra Bhai or I sell his product, whatever, and I get his commission, agency charges. And whatever he pays me service charges, whether it is interstate or intrastate. So first we have to find what is place of supply. So the place of supply says it is the location of the customer. So my customer was Mahendra Bhai because I am providing service to him or booking the order. So he is located in Gujarat. So it is an interstate transaction. So I will charge IGST. But suppose Mahendra Bhai is located in say USA. So now my principal goes to USA and I am in India only. So in this case, the same transaction section applicable will be section 13 and not section 12. And therefore, the same transaction, just because either provider or receiver is located outside India, the place of provision of service now, POS rule says that your POS will be location of the provider of service and not receiver. So when it is a domestic, it is a receiver. But when it becomes international, it becomes provider. So in that transaction, my place of provision will be location of a supplier. So myself is located in Maharashtra or Mumbai. So what will happen if Mahendra Bhai is in USA and I am in Mumbai, then the same transaction will become taxable. Okay, and that is where the problem is. So why you have a different provision for in the same statute when the transaction is happening between two people located in India and one located outside India and one located in India? Why different treatment? And that's why these writ petitions have been filed. So now we are taking or dealing with those writ petitions. So first is Material Recycling Association, and this is of a Gujarat High Court. Here what petitioners were doing, they were association of the people where the members were concerned. Most of them were agents related to the product called scrap, etc. Now these are all recycling products, and for the companies who are located outside India. So members were concerned, they were procuring the orders for their principal, and the customers were located in India. In this case, what was happening is the goods were the underlying product, but the goods were sold by the foreigner to Indians, and this person is concerned, they were just getting a commission or service charges for procuring the orders for the foreign principal. Okay. Now the issue here, the intermediaries have nothing to do with the goods, because principal will directly raise the invoice for buyer, who makes the payment of custom duty clear. For buyer, it is a purchase of goods. But petitioner is concerned, he is getting a commission. The point came before in this writ petition before the Honorable Gujarat High Court was on the service charges as per section 13(8)(b) of IGST, place of supply is becoming India, and which is liable to tax the entire transaction. That's why the writ was being filed. They are taking a ground that this section 13(8)(b) of the IGST Act is a ultra vires to the article 14, 19, 265, 286 of the Constitution. I hope now the things are clear by having given the background. This is what the issue involved. This decision and the next decision is on this matter only. Now, first is what is in the Article 14. We have seen equality of business, etc. So whether this is article is really constitutional validity is concerned, Gujarat High Court says that if your supplier of the service is in India and receiver is located outside India, then as per the section 13(8)(b), the place of provision is provided as the location of the provider of service, which is completely, absolutely in contrast to the principles of GST. Intermediary services are concerned, which are they are similar to the advisory or management consultancy, portfolio managers, etc., are concerned. It is similarly at par with that. And if it is, when it is par with them, it should be the place of supply should be the, see, if you are a portfolio manager, if you are management consultant, if you are lawyer or such kind of any service you are providing, then in that case your customer is located outside India, the POS will be the location of the recipient of service. Then why for intermediary it is a place of supply is the location of the provider of service. That is what the Honorable Gujarat High Court stated. And further it says that Article 286 of the Constitution is concerned, which always impose a restriction on levying a tax on sale or purchase of goods or service or both by a state where supply takes place in the course of import and exports. So when this intermediary is providing service to his principal located outside India, the recipient is outside India, so it is an export of service. And Article 286 prohibits you to impose tax on export of services. So Parliament is not authorized to legislate and artificially assign the place of supply to be within India when it clearly reflected that services are being exported outside India. That is what Honorable Gujarat High Court stated. So therefore, High Court further stated that Section 13(8)(b) read with Section 8(1), which is defining which is for intermediary, it provides for overseas recipient shall be classified as an interstate supply, which is absolutely contrast to the principle on which GST. Now GST is a what? GST is a consumption, destination-based consumption tax. Wherever the consumption happens, that should be the place you should get the benefit of the tax, and accordingly place of supply has been worked out. It's like we are selling the goods to a person in Ahmedabad, so it is an interstate transaction and we charge IGST and the tax goes to Ahmedabad, whatever. So the same way here also the Honorable High Court stated that the principle of destination based tax consumption is concerned is getting violated by notifying intermediaries POS as location of supplier. Further, it was also argued that it will lead to double taxation. How it will be double taxation? The example was given that suppose an Indian intermediary providing a service to a principal located in say UK. Now, by virtue of this 13(8)(b, on that commission, Indian intermediary will be paying tax in India. And for the European principal, it will become import of service for them as per the European law. And on import of service, they are also liable to pay tax in that country. So on 100 rupees transaction, we are paying here 18 rupees, and in UK, assume their also rate is 18%, then they are also paying 18 rupees. So it's a double taxation. Secondly, we don't have DTAA, double taxation avoidance agreement. Treaties are not there in the indirect tax GST. So the transaction is concerned is bearing the incidence double also. So that is also a constitutionally invalid to the extent Honorable High Court stated. Third is the 246A article of the Constitution, which is empowers Parliament only to make a law with respect to GST, where supply of goods or service both takes place in the course or furtherance of interstate trade or commerce. Hence, the section 13(8)(b) is concerned is framed in consonance with the said article of the Constitution. If that being the case, the legislature is concerned, the constitutional validity of this is the combined reading of both is concerned. The transaction of export, you cannot treat it as a local supply, and therefore it is agent is concerned. Who is intermediary agent is concerned, who is rendering service to principal in this transaction, is nothing but an export of service, who is facilitating a supply for his principal located outside India. So this is what the arguments etc. was being placed, and the Gujarat High Court in this case further held that when you are saying there is a double taxation, unfortunately Gujarat High Court has pronounced in a different way. Gujarat High Court says that there is no double taxation, but when giving justification for double taxation, it is very surprising. If you look at this thing, what it has been written, there is no case of double taxation, as the intermediary service provided by the petitioner would not be taxable in the hands of recipient. That is quite surprising. How it will not be taxable in the hands, because it will be import of service. No, if I am providing service to my principal located in UK provision, it is already provided that this is liable for tax under reverse charge. So there is a double taxation. But Honorable High Court says that rather they will get deduction for this. Mind well, deduction you get for this commission under income tax, and we are talking about indirect tax GST. So how can you say that when I get deduction under income tax, there is no double tax? So to that extent, Gujarat High Court has not pronounced the decision correctly to that extent in this place. And they say constitutional validity is concerned, it is a 13(8)(b) constitutionally valid, and the location of intermediary is the place of supply. That is what Gujarat High Court stated. So very unfortunate to that extent. Now the same matter has come before Mumbai High Court in the case of Dharmendra M. Jani, and this was very recent decision in the month of June 21. It was been pronounced. And here, unfortunately, here two-member bench was there of judges, and both the judges have given a contrary views, and therefore now this matter is pending before a Chief Justice in the Mumbai High Court only. But you see the observation, the issue was same here. So I am not saying the what is the facts of the case. It is absolutely same intermediary, whether the tax is leviable or no. They were providing the services to their principal located outside India or customer located outside India. Now here there were the constitutional validity was challenged. Same article 14, 19, 245, 246, etc. was challenged, and arguments were also by and large was same. To that extent, some extra arguments were there as compared to Gujarat High Court, but I will not reiterate. What is more important, we will see that what are the difference major. The first is they say that the state does not have any authority to levy tax on export of service. That was one of the important argument, because it is nothing but an export of service. If you look at the section 2 subclause 6 of IGST, it fulfills the criteria except 13(8)(b) is concerned, which is a place of supply. Otherwise, it is export of service. So this is a contrary to the fundamental concept of GST, which is a destination-based tax. So this was one of the argument which was very important here, also was picked out. Now, the revenues contention is concerned. They say the matter is already settled. It is already decided by the Gujarat High Court in the case of Material Recycling Association is concerned. Now comes the pronouncement of the Honorable Court. There were two judges. One is a Ujjal Bhuyan and one is a Abhay Ahuja. So there is a difference of opinion between these two. So first, what were observation of Ujjal Bhuyan is concerned. So Honorable Judge Ujjal Bhuyan is concerned that he pronounced that he observed that the Constitution has no power to impose tax on the export of service out of the territory of India. So the article reference was given 246A, 269A and 286 is concerned. Further, he stated that section 13(8)(b) and 8(2) have been created artificial fiction. So thereby, the export of service is deemed to have been treated as a local supply. The transaction of export is treated as an intra-state supply, so which is absolutely artificial fiction. And therefore, Article 245 and the ruling of a GVK industry of Supreme Court, there is a issue related to extraterritorial jurisdiction effect given in this case, and therefore the principle of destination-based consumption, which is against this, and it turns out to be principle of origin-based taxation, which is not the case. A GST is principle of destination-based consumption, on which the GST is entire foundation lies. Further, so therefore, Ujjal Bhuyan, the last observation of the honorable judges, the decision given by Material Recycling Association is of a Gujarat High Court, and which has no binding precedent for the state of Maharashtra. Of course, he further admitted that yes, it is have a considerable persuasive value, but that is not a binding for us. So therefore, he said that I don't agree with the Gujarat High Court, and he struck down the section 38(b) as per his view is concerned. Now, the second judge of the same bench in this matter was Mr. Abhay Ahuja, sir, the Honorable Abhay Ahuja. Then he concur with the views of a Gujarat High Court, and he has a completely 360-degree contrast view as against the Ujjal Bhuyan, the first judge is concerned. Now, what he said that in the law, GST law, we have two separate sections. One is a section term 2 subclause 13, which categorically define intermediary, and for that within the four corners of the law, place of supply rules are being provided in section 38. The section 2 subclause 6 only defines export of services, which is altogether a different section defining export. So both these sections are mutually exclusive, and one cannot take a stand that this is export of service, because you have never fulfilled the conditions, and both are not dependent section. When you are specifically you are dealing with place of supply, you are not to look into what is meant by export of service. So that is what Honorable Ms. Ahuja said. Secondly, so constitutional validity is concerned, section 7 and section 8 of the IGST Act is concerned, which is clearly laying down the condition for interstate and intrastate, and which is within the powers given by article of section 269A of the article. So it is within the power, and therefore the provisions in his view is concerned are not ultra vires to this constitution, and Parliament is concerned has acted within the powers given by the constitution in its wisdom and dealt with this intermediary service, and thereby the matter is concerned, it is the tax is concerned, 13(8)(b) section is not ultra vires to the scheme of the constitution is concerned. So this is what the view of Mr. Honorable other judge, Mr. Abhay Ahuja is concerned. Since we have a contrary view, now the matter is now placed before the Chief Justice of Mumbai High Court, which will be decided in the time to come. So friends, what is difficulty now? Why I have taken this decision is, now intermediary is concerned, as of now department, so many show causes we have seen Rather, of course, there are very few tribunal decisions. There are quite a few advanced ruling, which although we don't respect much to advanced ruling, but if you look at all the advanced ruling, even Visa was the latest advanced ruling. The intermediary is concerned, the way it has been interpreted by the department. First of all, I think in most cases, the correct interpretation is not coming up. If you are just doing back office job, then also they are treating this as an intermediary. And so intermediary is the first term they have to understand. And thereafter comes the question of the exports and this 13(8)(b). The most important, the law was up to 30th of September 2014, was something saying that it was export of service. On one fine day, why government want this want this transaction to be taxable? Secondly, if you look at the European VAT, our law is completely contrast to European VAT as far as this intermediary is concerned, because this transaction is of intermediary in European country is not liable to tax, and it is export of services to that extent. So we are absolutely to the extent, let me tell you, that 13(8)(b) is concerned is in contrast to the scheme. Of course, the constitutional validity of that is concerned. We have to respect the decision of honorable courts are concerned, and there are contrary views. So let Chief Justice of Mumbai High Court decide this matter. Otherwise, this litigation will continue to their extent. Well, friends, that was about the intermediary. If anybody has any issues about the intermediary or on board this decision, you can ask. Else, we'll go to the next.
Anybody has any question, please?
Well, shall I proceed?
Yes, sir. I think so. No one has doubt.
Fine. I think the next is a very, very interesting. I'm sure all of you, those are practicing in GST, will have one or two notice minimum on this issue covered. We have plethora of cases we are facing in this. You must have seen that for your client, there are quite a few suppliers. They have given the invoice, they have supplied the goods or service as the case may be. They might have filed their GSTR1 or no, or may not be, but they might not have paid the taxes. So they may be defaulted to that extent. And department has issued the notices to your client for recovery of ITC amount to that extent by issuing a simple letter saying that this much amount is not appearing in your 2A, it is a mismatch with 3B, and therefore please pay this amount along with interest and penalty. The simple intimations are coming, and a plethora of cases, and then if you reply, you know, at the end of the day, some people have paid it, some people replied, no, we are not liable, then show cause has come, etc., etc. So this matter is a burning issue. I'm sure most of you must have faced. It was recently, a couple of months back, the similar matter has gone to Madras High Court in the case of DY Bethel Enterprises. Now, what are the facts of the case here? Here in this company, the appellant is concerned, DY Bethel, they were a dealer of raw rubber sheets, and they have procured this rubber from two different people. One is Mr. Charles and second is Shanti, Charles' wife. Both of them have sold the goods, rubber sheets to them. Now on that they have charged GST. The Bethel Enterprise has taken credit of the same. But substantial portion of and they have made the payment to both these parties also toward the invoice, and they have taken credit. But both these parties have not filed all their returns, neither they have paid full tax. So therefore, the department has issued a notice to DY Bethel for recovery of the GST ITC credit taken by them on the invoice of both these Charles and Shanti is concerned. Now, they argued before department saying that we have purchased the goods, here is the proof, here are the invoice, here are the payment, they have made the payment to the parties, etc. So there is a question of their paying, they have correctly taken ITC. And if the tax is not paid by the vendor, the department should go to the vendor first and recover. The department, as usual, you know, they don't either they don't understand or they don't want to understand, come what may be. In either case, they say refuse and just try to recover the tax by attaching bank account as the case may be. The matter has gone to the High Court, Madras High Court, by way of a writ. Now here the facts of the case may further is there is an inspection being carried out by the government. At that time this point was noted, and show cause was being issued to the petitioner to pay the credit rather than show cause was issued to the vendors for making payment of tax. That Shanti and the other vendor, gentlemen, those two guys, show cause should have been issued that you are not paid the tax. In spite of that, instead of that, the show cause was issued to DY Bethel that you have taken credit wrongly and please pay the tax. That was the first observation. Then petitioner has also submitted the reply along with the documentary evidence of all these things, but still department is concerned, they have completely ignored that and not made any efforts and just passed the order against this petitioner for recovery of the ITC. Now, when the matter has gone to the court, the Honorable High Court has held in following. So first of all, High Court held that the section 16 is the one which lays down various conditions for the availment of the ITC is concerned. If you read that conditions, all those conditions are properly being fulfilled by DY Bethel. So there is the goods were being purchased, the invoice was also there, they have filed the return, etc., etc., and the ITC was eligible also. Now the tax has never reached to the kitty of the government, but that tax has to come from Shanti and her husband, and not from the Bethel. So now department has not taken any steps whatsoever for recovery of GST from those vendors. Okay, those vendors were defaulter, partly or fully, for making the payment of tax, and without approaching them, straight away attached to the petitioner. So there is a complete gross negligence or omission on the part of the department to approach, because there is a recourse being provided in the law that whosoever has not paid the tax or filed the return, department can recover, department can cancel their number, issue the notice, what not they can do. Fine. So not a single section was invoked against them, and proceeding was initiated straight away against the buyer. So that is what the High Court says is completely in contrast to the scheme. Further, Honorable High Court says that there was no movement of good was the argument of the department, which is completely incorrect. If there is no movement of the goods is concerned, they should have examined the seller. And in fact, the Bethel as concerned enterprise, they have also mentioned in the reply, then let us record the statement of the seller, whether they have supplied the goods or no, why they have not paid the taxes, etc. But department sweetly ignored those parts. Okay, and therefore the High Court says that all the recourses which were available with the department in this case for recovery of the taxes was never being properly administered by the department. So that's why they quashed the demand completely by the show cause notice and sent the matter back to the department for remand with the instruction that first go to the seller, make all the efforts and invoke all the provisions which are provided in the statute to recover the tax, and thereafter only you can approach to the DY Bethel, the buyer, if you fail to recover the tax. I'm sure most of you have faced this kind of situation, and so this is a very, very good decision in your favor. Of course, the facts of the case are very, very important. We have come across some of the transactions; those are purely hawala transactions. That is completely different mindwell. This I am talking about the facts of the case where there are genuine transactions of purchase of goods and services. You have all the documentary evidence, and only it is a fault of your vendor who has not paid the tax or filed the return. Therefore, you cannot be made to suffer. This decision will come to your help. Yeah, if anybody has any questions, issue, etc., then you can ask. Otherwise, I'll proceed to the next. Bhaven bhai, I can proceed or?
Yeah, for the last time there was a question for ship management agency will be intermediary.
Ship management. Now,
Yeah.
Gentlemen, the term intermediary has been defined. If you read the section 2 subclause 13 of the IG. Now, intermediary is arranges and facilitates supply between two persons, supply of goods or service. Now, your person will ask the question ship management. So, in the transaction of intermediary, there has to be always presence of three parties. If there are no presence, and there has to be two supply transactions. I'll give one more example once again. Say Yogesh bhai wants to supply some goods, and for that he asks myself, Rajiv, to procure an order or find out the customer. So I get him a customer, but namely Mr. Bhaven. So I'll tell you, here is a Bhaven who wants the goods, and pricing etc. is negotiated. So Yogesh Bhai will supply goods or service to Bhaven, and I will get commission. So now in this transaction will be intermediary, because there are 3 parties involved and there are 2 transactions happening. One is supply from Yogesh to Bhaven is one supply. Secondly, from Rajiv to Yogesh, that is a service supply. So true transaction. This is what is the intermediary. Now you have asked the question, ship management service. I am sure in ship management service, you read your contract, it is only 2 parties involved. There is no third party. You will have to administer or manage, you have to do blah, blah, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 activities. But actually speaking, your agreement, what is the scope of agreement? Are you there to find out the customers, etc., or for them? Then fine. Otherwise, you are only doing management, administrative, or some advisory role, then it will not be intermediary whatsoever. I hope I am clear.
Yes, yes. Thank you, sir. Another question is there. Yeah, if suppliers declare transaction in the wrong state of the same company, in such case, how to claim GST ITC?
Can you just repeat? I could not get the facts, sir.
Yeah, if suppliers declare transaction in wrong state of the same company, in such
wrong state,
wrong state of the same company.
Okay.
So if he has a his company is registered with the 2 state, is declare the transaction in the another state.
Okay.
So how to claim GST ITC in that?
Fine, fine. So see, that means there is a mistake on the part of your supplier vendor in filing the returns or declaring the transaction in his return. Correct, sir?
Yes, yes, yes. Perfect, perfect.
Yeah. So you have got all the evidence of your bills, your contract, your LR, or maybe your, if it is a goods, then you will have e-way bill, etc., etc., payment proof, all are there. Correct? Now in that case, if you come to know, nowadays people are checking 3B and 2A immediately, that 2A with whatever matching. So if you come to know within 1, 2, 3 months, and if time is there, ask him to rectify. But suppose you don't have that time, and that time has gone, then you have to, you still continue with your ITC, you need not reverse. See, the law is very clear. You cannot be penalized for the mistake of other party. Now, there is no fault of yours. You have no control of your vendor, how he file his return. Okay. You can only produce the evidence related to that. So in that case, if notice comes to you, you should give the reply giving all the evidence. And I'll tell you one more thing. Take an affidavit, because your vendor has made a mistake. Ask him to give affidavit that I have done this, and I have paid the tax on the same. However, while filing my return, I have made this mistake. That's all. So if the tax has been paid, if his mistake is on this part, government will issue the notice to him for recovery or correcting of that mistake. But your ITC remain unaffected to that extent. But let me tell you honestly, if the amount involved is very small, the department, the way they are behaving right now, let me tell you, either they don't want to understand, or whether it is administrative instructions or whatever, harassment, whatever you say, all this matter at the show cause level or at first appeal level, the possibility of getting matter decided in your favor is very, very, very remote. I can tell you 1 out of 1,000 case may be in your favor. Even if you have some decision in your favor, the departmental, my experience is concerned, they just ignore or they just distinguish in a flimsy ground. So you should be mentally prepared to fight up to the higher forum, and that's why the commercials also is very important. For small amount, if you start fighting, perhaps it will not be commercially viable. But if you're asking me law-wise, it's 100% your case.
Yeah, thank you. Another question is, in such case like Bethel, what will be the liability as to interest and the penalty when Section 16 compliances are there with the buyer?
Yeah. So, gentlemen, when you are complied to it, and if you prove your bona fides with all the documentary evidence, there, first of all, there cannot be interest when there is no tax. You have to take all the step and ask the department, write reply, kindly make follow-up with the vendor. The only thing is that department, if you look at that, if there is a provision in the law that if some vendor has not filed the returns for 3 months, department can cancel his number. We have to ask, why you are not cancelled after 3 months? Secondly, department, why he has not issued show cause notice. All these points you have to tell and let department reply. If department is sleeping for 1 year and after 1 year it is coming to you and that person has run away, then that is not your mistake. It is a department mistake, because when law says, why law has been provided that if the defaulter for 3 months registration is liable to be cancelled and department was just sleeping. Only thing, you will have to take up this matter at a higher forum for sure. Only High Court or maybe the tribunal will be the competent authority. So your question was, what about interest penalty? In my view, there cannot be interest, there cannot be any penalty, even if that person has not paid the tax. But if it is department has taken the action after very long time, say 1 year, 2 years, then you will have a good case to argue, and I am sure the High Court has to come to your rescue.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah. Shall we go to next, sir?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Please.
Yeah. The next is about the Mohit Mineral. I think this is slightly about a year and a half, maybe 15-month-old case, but very, very important, because a lot of clients have this matter. That's why I thought it is of a larger interest to take this decision also, and which is decided in our favor as of now. But this is department has gone into Supreme Court against this decision of a Gujarat High Court. This is the case of Mohit Mineral. Now, I'll just give the facts of the case here is concerned. Now, Mohit Mineral is concerned, they were importing the goods, which is a cooking coal, from various countries, say Indonesia, South Africa, USA, etc., etc. So after importing, they were supplying in India to the customer, who are mostly power companies or steel companies, etc. So it is an import trader. That was the nature of business of Mohit Mineral. Okay, they were importing and trading the goods in India. Now, in this case, whenever they are importing the goods, they were liable for customs duty. So they have paid that customs duty correctly on that part of it. And mind well, what is the provision for payment of customs duty? There is a valuation mechanism given in customs duty. And what it says that for valuation for payment of customs duty, you have to include not only the cost of material, but you have to also include all the incidental expenses which you have incurred for bringing the material till in India. So there is an import freight, etc., whatever is there over it, that will also form part of the value. So if it is suppose 100 rupees coal is there, you have incurred 5 rupees of freight, etc. So your value for custom duty will be 105 and not 100. And he was paying tax on that. So on 105 rupees custom duty was paid. Now you know that there is a section 5 of the IGST Act, which says that on the imported goods, the goods whenever been imported, it is the customs department, while recovering the customs duty, also recovers IGST of the same. Okay, IGST on the same is also recovered. So on 105 rupees in our example, government has recovered custom duty also, and assume the rate of tax is 18%. So they have collected IGST also. Of course, you get credit for the same is different thing, but you have to the tax IGST was recovered. Now, the issue involved is this 105 rupee is concerned, which is a 100 rupees was cost and 5 rupees was toward the freight. Okay. Now, the freight is concerned in this example was challenge is whether the IGST having paid on the goods can again be levied only on the freight under the reverse charge mechanism, which is provided in the law, being a transaction of services. I hope you are getting what I am saying. See, sir, the shipping company, whosoever to whom the freight has been paid, the freight is also, it is a service. And on that, you have to pay the GST at applicable rate. Now, whether that is required to be paid, because on the freight, you already paid IGST, which government has recovered when they have valued the goods imported. I hope it's clear. Now, on that, the reference was given to entry number 9 of notification number 8 of 2017. Now, this notification provides that the IGST at the rate of 5% is leviable on the service of transport of goods in a vessel, including service provided or agreed to be provided. Now, that means these kind of transaction, when you are importing the goods on that freight component, you are liable to pay service tax under RCM. That is the notification number, say, 5 provide that. Now, here one more thing is that this notification says that even if such services have been provided by a person located in non-taxable territory to another non-taxable territory for transportation of goods by vessel from a place outside India to customer located in India. Even on that also it is liable to be paid. And who has to pay this tax? The tax is to be paid by the importer. That is provided by notification 10. I'll give a small example. In this case, this company Mohit Mineral has imported coal from Indonesia. Then suppose their understanding is to the transaction is CIF. Okay, CIF means the freight will be borne by the vendors. Okay, so I will get straight away, Mohit Mineral will get invoice of 105 rupees. That includes freight and everything. Now, in that case, the vendor located in Indonesia must have paid some freight to the shipping line that is also located outside India. Now, on that also, this notification number 8, read with notification number 10, provides that on that freight amount, which is a service, GST thereon has to be paid by the importer at the rate of 5%. So just try to understand, the shipping company is outside India, the vendor is outside India, only the goods are coming to India, and on that freight I have to pay tax as a service under reverse charge, just only because I am an importer. I am not receiver of service. I am not provider of service. What I am doing is only importing goods. And on the goods, government has already taken custom duty. Government has already taken IGST. And IGST, while collecting, they have included the value of freight in the value of goods. So thereby there is a double taxation coming up. Fine. So this writ petition was being filed in the Gujarat High Court. Now here the arguments were there cannot be levy except for impugn notification. And this levy is ultra vires to the IGST Act for the reason that the IGST Act is concerned who has to pay the tax. It is either supplier has to pay the tax or the receiver has to pay tax. And the tax is to be paid only when the services or the goods are concerned is because the Act is applicable to whole of India. That is only to taxable territory and not to the non-taxable territory. Now that shipping company providing service to a vendor, both are located outside India and they are paying freight. There may be some taxation law of that country, they are paying, they will be liable, not liable. But why Indian law should invoke the tax? Because the Indian person is neither provider nor receiver. And the GST Act itself doesn't, that section 9, if you read, reverse charge mechanism, it say you have to pay, it is to be paid by receiver. Or if you say on a forward charge, it is to be paid by the provider of service. It is not the beneficiary. Importer is the only beneficiary. The law has not envisaged the tax has to be discharged by the beneficiary. Now, in that situation, further, there is an extraterritorial jurisdiction. Extraterritorial jurisdiction because it is a supply happens within the taxable territory is liable. The supply happens where? In this case, supply has never happened in India just because the ship has reached India for delivery of the coal. Does not mean that supply of the transport facility has happened in India, transport service happen in India. So that is what also been argued. So extraterritorial jurisdiction is also there. Now the further contention, petitioner further says that he has already paid IGST. That example I have given to that extent while he is paid on the goods. So there is a double taxation and which is illegal and unconstitutional. So this is what another argument by the petitioner in this Mohit Minerals case is concerned. Now, deeming fiction is concerned for the purpose of valuation. Now, mind well, how to pay tax is being provided in both this notification. Suppose the shipping company is located in Indonesia and the vendor is also in Indonesia. On that tax I have to pay on the freight. I don't know the freight amount only, because it is negotiated between those two people. I am not concerned with the freight amount. Okay. Now the notification says that if you don't know the amount of freight for making payment of tax, they have provided 10% of the value of goods. Now this is an artificial valuation. That is a deeming fiction of valuation. So petitioner argues that the deeming fiction of value in the notification is illegal. And there is no concept of value of taxable service in the Act, because if you read section 15, it says the amount charged. There nothing was charged. This is deeming fiction. So that is also been a challenge in this case. So through the delegated legislation, the notification, such notification of deeming fiction cannot be issued to determine the value is concerned. And there is a vagueness in the measure or value on which the rate will be applied for computing the tax liability. and thereby the levy becomes fatal to that extent. Now the contention of the petitioners we have seen. More important, he said, I am not recipient of the service, so reverse charge is not applicable to me to that extent. The next is concerned, they have cited powers which are government has while issuing this notification. Now, notification is concerned, number 8, which is dealing with this, is issued under section 6(1) of the IGST Act. Now, that section never gives powers. It is to the government for the valuation, etc. This gives power only for exemption. That section 6, if you read of IGST Act, the powers have been given to government to grant as exemption. But this notification is never been issued for exemption. It was for the purpose of deciding the rate of tax, which is completely illegal. So that notification is a bad in law, or it has to be struck down to that extent, was also one of the grounds of the argument. In this case is concerned. Now the contention of the government in this matter says that, and you see how funny they have argued in this case, the levy introduced by way of imputed notification of import of freight service does not result into additional cost to the importer. See the argument, it does not result into additional cost. Why are you concerned with the cost, whether it is legally valid or no? On the same transaction, why you want me to pay tax 2 times? So then their argument is concerned, as an importer, you are eligible for the benefit. You can take IGST, so there is no burden on you. So if there is no burden, then you will keep loading with burden on me. You will take me double, triple, 3, 4 times you pay tax, but law has never provided that. So that unfortunately, this is how it has been argued. And they say there are 2 separate events happening. One is a supply of goods that is on import you have paid. Second, there is a supply of service to you. But I am again repeatedly telling you, I am only beneficiary of service. I am not a receiver of the service. So that is clear. Now, thereby, the arguments of the contention of the respondent, that is government is concerned, is not in consonance with the law is concerned. Now, finally, merely because imposition of the levy, if the business become uneconomical or may cause any hardship, the same cannot be ground for striking down the levy. See the argument. Now, I'll give one small example. If I import coal for 100 rupees, and including freight thereon, and I pay 18% tax, that is government charge from me IGST, and I sell that coal for say 110 or 120 rupees, I will again pay 18% on that and credit thereon. Now, by this provision, even on the freight, I will pay second time tax. And so my credit will keep on increasing. Okay, I have no output supply to that extent. And this will not become cost to me. Yes, it will be a cost. And for that, their reply is concerned merely because imposition of levy, if the business become uneconomical or may cause hardship, the same cannot be ground for striking down. I think goods and simple tax, as pronounced by our Prime Minister, it doesn't look to be when it has been percolated at the ground level. Fine. Now, what is the court has held in this case? In this case, the petitioner has imported the importer was always to only import the goods and not to avail any services. And on that goods, the tax is already been paid. The obligation for paying off the consideration is always also of the foreign exporter. So for on the service portion, how can you importer be liable when he has already paid the tax? Secondly, he is not a recipient of service. That honorable court says, and the law has permitted the statute empowers the government to recover the tax either from the provider or from the recipient. In this case, Mohit Mineral is neither provider of service nor recipient of service. They are definitely recipient of goods, but not of the services. And then there is this is very important observation. The principle of construction in the tax statute is that if the person sought to be taxed comes within the letter of the law, he must be taxed. In a taxing act, one has to merely look at what is clearly said. There is no room for any intendment. So, okay, they say, no, you are beneficiary. That is intention. There is no equity about tax. There is no presumption as to tax. Nothing is to be read in, nothing has to be implied. Only look fairly at the language. So that's why honorable court held that the writ applicant cannot be made liable to pay tax on some supposed theory that importer is directly or indirectly recipient of the service, and because the recipient is the one who is not liable. So in this case, the Honorable Gujarat High Court has struck down the notification, and the tax is not payable on this. That is what been held. And there are a lot notices have been issued on same ground. Friend, this particular case is department is fighting against the higher level Supreme Court. So today we have a decision in our favor from Gujarat. There is no contrary decision to this, but still matter is pending. So if you receive the show cause notice, the department is concerned, they are not adjudicating this, and they are keeping the matter on hold as against this, and they are taking the ground that we are in the appeal against this show cause, against this Gujarat High Court decision is concerned. But there are a lot of litigation pending in this matter is concerned. Yeah, any issues about this? Then you can ask me.
Yes, sir. One of the issue was asked, in case of IC sale, there is no supply of the goods and services. Then also national counting of freight to be made at 10% of the value, and IGST on the RCM. Question mark means what is the provision there?
Yeah. See, on the IC sale, there is the person who is ultimately going to clear the goods from customs. IGST liability will be recovered from that party only, the person one who gets it cleared from the custom. So that will be recovered. Now you are talking about the freight. Now when it is IC sale, I will only like to ask one question in this exam, this particular poser to the guy who has asked me, who is going to pay the freight? If the freight is being paid by anyone who is located in India, then of course you have availed the services to that extent. If you have not paid the freight, there cannot be any tax liability because you are not receiver of service. That is what is being held in Mohit Mineral case also. So I think your question is replied. Either if you have an invoice in your name for the freight, you will be liable to pay tax. If invoice is not in your name, that means you have not availed the services. There cannot be tax liability on.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
I don't think so. Nothing new question is there. Yes, please.
Fine. Now I have about 15-20 minutes are there. I have 2-3 more cases are there. Let me focus on that now. This is very common. I am sure many of you must have received the notices. I will not say notice, simple letter communication from the department that your liability was this much under GST. This was a due date, and you have paid beyond the due date, and please pay with interest and penalty. Simple intimation is coming. They calculate, and that's how. Now, such kind of letters, whether are you supposed to, because interest is a mandatory. The relevant section is section 50. Okay. Now, just because it is mandatory, by issuing simple intimation letter, can department ask you or recovers a tax from you? That is what the issue involved. Here is one of these case is LC Infra project, that is a Karnataka High Court. Here what has happened is similar letter was received by this LC Infra, and department has tried to recover interest. This person didn't pay, department attached the bank account and recover the interest just after issuing that letter, and since they have not paid, they have recovered. Now the matter has gone, they have filed the writ petitions in the Karnataka High Court LC Infra, and respondent has challenged the notice of demand of interest which was issued in the year 2019 for recovery. And the action which is taken by, on letter came on 4th March, and the government authorities have attached the bank account on 7 March. So fast when it comes to recovery within 3 days. And they have attached the bank account for non-payment of interest. They say it is mandatory, you pay it off. Now here the Karnataka High Court, the matter has been travels. The party petitioner has gone to High Court, and there the single member bench of the Karnataka High Court passed in order in response to the writ petition by following observation. First of all, in this particular case, department has just issued an intimation or notice or simple letter. There was no show cause notice. Whenever department want to recover any amount from you, the section 73 and 74 requires them to issue show cause notice only. Without show cause, they cannot recover the amount from you. So, Honorable Court has held that in this case, show cause was not issued. Secondly, issuance of show cause is a sine qua non. That means it is a mandatory requirement to proceed with the recovery of interest. Okay, I know that interest is mandatory. Although it is mandatory, but still you can't recover without issuing the notice. You have to give the opportunity of being heard. That is principle of a natural justice to the party for recovery of interest as well as penalty or any tax amount. That is what the section provides. So the determination of the liability of interest without issuing of show cause notice is concerned is a breach of the principle of natural justice, and according to the Honorable Karnataka High Court, caused the order demanding the interest and attaching the bank account. Now in this case, the matter has gone further. Revenue has filed the appeal, and in this appeal, because it was against single member change, so they had gone to the principal bench, and there it has stated that interest which otherwise also was mandatory, and the government argued interest is sections 50, there is no option, no waiver, and the tax was paid belatedly, so interest was due to us. So there was no necessity to issue show cause. Why you want show cause? Because section provides, and there is a clear-cut case of delayed payment. So where is the question of issuing show cause? Simply you are liable to pay interest under section 15(1), and bank account was attached only because there was a failure on the part of party to make payment of interest. And section 73(1) is concerned. The 73(1) talks about where it appears to the proper officer that tax was short paid, more paid, not paid, erroneously refunded, or ITC has been wrongly availed. Then only you have to issue show cause notice. So where is the question of interest? There is no mention about interest in this section 73. This was the argument by the government in this case. Now, what was the argument by LC Infra? The argument, they argued saying that section 50 provides that interest can be demanded if the assessee failed to pay tax within the prescribed time. And section 73(1) is applicable when tax has not been paid. Okay, that means when tax has not been paid, short paid, etc., it contemplates thereby that SCN has to be issued to assessee to show cause as to why he has not paid the tax or why it is short paid the tax. And in the same notice, they have to allege for recovery of tax along with interest and consequential penalties as the case may be. So SSE is always entitled for this notice and opportunity of being heard and put forth his point of argument to defend before making payment and before the recovery starts. So however, in the instant case, the department without issuing show cause notice, simple demand letter and recover the tax based on their own assessments without any opportunity and attack the bank account. So the Honorable Karnataka High Court further held that SCN is a sine qua non, which is must. 73(1) is section, even if 73(1) is not applicable, because 73(1) talks about tax short paid, not paid, refund wrongly paid, ITC wrongly availed. There is no mention of interest, but still, in the interest of principle of natural justice, which has to be complied with before demanding or recovering any amount towards interest and penalty, consequence to that, SCN is concerned has to be issued and demand cannot be recovered, bank account cannot be attached for recovery because there was a breach of the principle of natural justice. And therefore, this division bench is concerned, they say that this recovery is concerned is a bad in law and appeal of the revenue was dismissed. Therefore, what I am trying to say, why I have taken this decision? We have received quite a few letters for our clients also that there is a delayed payment and pay the interest. Even calculation of interest is also not been provided. You have to ask for what is calculation, how the amount is arrived at. There may be calculation error. Sometimes they are calculating at the rate of 24%. So all those things has to be checked up. You should have ground. Of course, I know in the statute there is no power to waiver of the interest of any of the party if there is a default happens. And in that case, if there is no waiver, interest is mandatory. But this notice is must and then only. So if you come across such thing, then this decision will be handy for you. Without show cause, there cannot be recovered. Yeah, any issues on this, sir?
Yeah. I think so. No one has asked on this.
Fine. No problem. Now I'll proceed with the next. And this is the last one of the day, and this is more related to service tax. But it will also, I'm sure, help you going forward on the GST on a different footing. Now, let me give some background of this, and then we'll discuss in next 5 to 7 minutes left out time. In the GST, goods and service both are now governed by the same statute, and there is a classification of a certain transaction in goods and service, and that is given in Annexure 2 to Section 7, Schedule 2. Now, one of that is the restaurant is concerned. Restaurant, whether it is a supply of goods or supply of service, in old days we have quite a good fight because VAT and service tax overlapping, etc. Now, for GST it is taxable, but it is taxable as a service because restaurant is treated as a service as per Schedule 2 to Section 7. Now, this is a matter is related to RSM Foods Private Limited of Madras High Court, and this was vis-a-vis the old law of service tax law. In the old service tax regime, the restaurants were liable for VAT. I know the provisions of VAT in Mumbai to that extent. I am sure in Madras also they are liable. And plus, apart from that, there was a service tax also on the restaurant, provided it is air condition, etc., subject to those conditions. Now, in this case, what will happen is, this was period prior to June 17, that means service tax. And the component here is, there was a restaurant, they were providing hotel service, AC, etc., everything was there. But apart from that, there was a takeaway and parcel service. So nowadays in COVID, we are used to more of takeaway and parcel service. So kind of service they were providing. And even there was a sale of counter sale of goods. So some pastries or cold drinks, etc. So the person asks and just they give it, that gentleman may not enter into the restaurant also, etc. And the question comes is whether those transactions related to takeaway and the parcel service are liable to service tax or no. This is purely, friends, all the decision we have discussed so far are GST. This is the only one which is service tax decision. And I am sure it is relevant for all of you, even for GST. Now here, appellant has argued that they say that the parcel services are concerned, there is no element of service involved in the parcel service. The person, whosoever he want, whatever kind of takeaway foods, just they place the order either on phone or any other mode, Swiggy. Nowadays there are various pickup players are there, Swiggy, etc. So they just place the order, they on the counter, the hotel restaurant do provide them, and the money transaction gets settled. The customer never enters the hotel or enjoy any of the facility. When the takeaway it is a trading in the goods. That is what the argument of this case of RSM Food is concerned. Now, the petitioner says that you read the definition of Section 65B44, which defines the term service. Now, it says that within the service, there is an exclusion that of a transfer of title in goods by way of sale, which is excluded. So, if somebody has ordered for some food on a parcel basis, it is only trading in goods. I made a good food for him and he took away. It's a trading. It is similar to the trading in goods, that's all. Like we have Farsan shop is there, no? Farsan shop, pastries, etc. Same, nothing wrong. So that is what the argument. Secondly, the petitioner has also drawn the attention to one of the circular number 334 of February 2011. And there it was being stated that there could not be any splitting up of a transaction artificially between sale and service. So when the transaction is predominantly is that of sale of goods, you cannot split the service portion thereon. Like I'll give one small order. If you purchase some goods from say D-Mart, whatever goods, and nowadays D-Mart there is a delivery of the good. They do provide your home delivery. Sometimes it is a free and sometimes they charge it also. Okay. Now mind well, whatever is you are there, the dominant intention is always for purchase of good. The delivery is concerned is obviously not a service. It is nothing but a part of the cost of the goods only, and there is only transaction of sale of goods only. So that is what the argument over here, that I am not providing any service. It is a pure sale of goods and there cannot be the service tax on the same. Now restaurant service definition is very important. The term being defined in the service tax says that it should have all the attributes of a restaurant, such as there has to be some organized sitting, there has to be air condition, There has to be table, live music, something of that kind. Some hospitality has to be there, waiter, service, etc., etc. And all those things are required. Crockeries, what all those things. So there is an element that apart from food, you are given all this thing extra, and which is in the nature of service, and that makes the component, and that's why this has been brought to the tax. If you don't provide these additional facilities or services, the transaction is merely that of sale. That was the petitioner's contention. Now, in response to that, the revenue has argued. Now, revenue says that you look at section 66E of the Finance Act, okay, and that is a declared service. And in the declared service, which is the transaction which are covered in the declared service, is treated as service under section 65B44, covered within the definition of service. So that's why the revenue's contention is that since supply of food or any other article of human consumption or any drink are taxable and treated as a declared service under section 66E1, then it is nothing but it is covered within the definition of service. That is one argument. Secondly, respondent says that revenue, that they rely upon the decision of Honorable Mumbai High Court. That was a decision in the case of Indian Hotels and Restaurant Association, and where the Honorable Court has held that restaurant is primarily providing service, and the sale undertaken in the course of the rendition of service is only an incidental. So that is what Honorable Mumbai High Court has held in the context. Now, in that case, the Madras High Court says that obviously, let me tell you, the revenue's contention is concerned, they should have appreciated that this RSM food is already paying tax on the restaurant service. The issue was only about the home delivery and the counter sale. There was otherwise there is no dispute. So thus provision of takeaway food and drinks involved in the is also involved in the rendition of service, and that is a mode of sale or providing of the service. That is what been argued by the revenue, which is completely contrast. Now, in response to that, the ultimately courts have held that in the transaction which are there of a home delivery or counter sale, there is no element of service whatsoever involved. It is a pure transaction of sale of food and drinks, and they are taxable as if there is a tax applicable to goods, if at all, but there cannot be any service tax on the sale. So sale of food and drinks simpliciter, the service of selection and purchase of ingredient, etc., would not attract levy of service tax. This would cover, there is a various gamut of service which hotel or restaurant is otherwise providing is absent in this transaction, and therefore this transaction will not be levied to service tax. So Madras High Court decision is in the old regime of service tax. If department, if any of your client has not paid the tax, this decision will come handily to you. Only thing you will have to find out and carve out and prove that how much portion or which transaction is that of a counter sale or a home delivery, and then you can rely upon that decision. Now, why this decision will be valid even in today's law? Because under GST, this is classified as a service. Now, supplied by restaurant. Now, again, here one issue can crop up that whether it is a service when there is no element of service involved in that on a counter sale. Can we take this argument? Because restaurant predominantly is concerned, again, this is a takeaway parcel. So takeaway parcel, whatsoever may be the food you order, it's tailor-made or maybe at ready to serve, whatever it may be. But there is no element of service involved. So can we again say that the rate of tax which is applicable on the service or for the restaurant may not be applicable on the takeaway and food parcels, going by this RSM food decision to that extent? So that is time only will tell us based on the litigation in time to come. So this was about the restaurant decision is concerned, and you have a good case to argue. Well, friends, any issues if you have on this or any one of this part, you can very well ask. I hope within the time allotted, I try to complete my presentation. 8 case laws are concerned. Yes, sir.
Thank you very much, Rajiv bhai. Anyone has to ask question, please start your mic and please go ahead.
Hello.
Yeah.
Rajiv sir, with respect to the last judgment which was related to the service tax, and you said that it has got a time value with the GST also. because there is no services involved, and takeaways may be treated as in goods, sale of goods only. So with
maybe,
respect
yes.
with respect to there too, the all threshold limits related to the registration, related to the you can say to composition dealership and all can be applicable.
Yes, but only the Mahendra bhai, you will have one challenge, because most of the restaurant will have takeaway as one of the element. They will also have the restaurant sitting sale will be there, no, obviously.
I'm talking
that
about
portion.
sorry to interrupt you. I'm talking about somewhere where the like in tea shops who are delivering the tea on the counter itself. There may be ready foods available now in the market on the many of the counters where the ready foods are serviced across the counter, no entry inside the restaurant or a shop also. Whether those all will be.
Yeah, Mahendra bhai, that is there is a something called kitchen. Only kitchen is there, and there is no sitting arrangement, nothing. Okay. Now there is an advance ruling. I don't recollect the name, but that is not in our favor. Anyway, I don't respect advance ruling to that extent. But let me tell you, that cannot be providing any restaurant services. Let me tell you. Nowadays, actually, I think in Mulund also we have one such I have heard of. That there is only home delivery and the pickup facility. There is no sitting, whether it is COVID or pre-COVID. It is only a kitchen. That's all. So where is a service? And if you read the entry of Schedule 2 under GST, it says that following composite supply shall be treated as supply of service. And there it has been supply by way of or part of any service or in other manner whatsoever of goods. Now, mind well, it says that the classification of restaurant under service will happen only if there is a supply of food as a part of service. Now, here, when you are saying it's only kitchen, there is no service only.
Correct.
It is just like there will be ice cream shop, there will be farsan shop, there will be nowadays so many. So they are all giving you food. So different kind of foods are being given by different people. So I don't think that at that time this Madras High Court decision will be very much helpful, and one could have very good ground to argue. And let me tell you, if you have only that business, then I think you are not liable to go by service transaction, at the rate which you are applying for service also may not be applicable.
Anyone has doubt, please go ahead.
Yeah, Raju bhai, good evening, sir. I am referring to Mohit Minerals case, whereby it is being said that if the goods are imported on CIF basis, does it mean that the RCM is not applicable if the goods are physically imported on CIF basis?
No, sir, gentlemen, CIF basis means what will happen? It will be the duty of your supplier located outside India to deliver the goods till the customs station in India. So suppose you are in Mumbai, so till Mumbai customs they will deliver. So all the expenses en route related to insurance, freight, etc. will be borne by them. So your product is concerned, whatever price you are paying, that is only for goods. Okay. And the moment you clear that goods from custom, department is collecting custom duty as well as IGST. The question was, Mohit Minerals, what will happen to the tax which government sought to levy by that notification 8 and 10 on the service of freight? And in your case, CIF may, you have no responsibility of making payment of freight. You have agreed to reimburse the freight, and the part thereof is already included. I'll give small example, sir. Mohit and so if you go by this thing, there is no liability for you to make the payment under reverse charge on the freight element. Sir, if you purchase some goods, say Sony TV, if you purchase and you ask them to deliver the goods to your office or your house, okay, they say we will charge you 2,000 rupees for transport. Suppose they tell you. Now you tell me that are you interested in service of transport? No, you want a goods only, but you want goods to be delivered at your residence. Okay, so whatever you are paying is nothing but it is for goods. Mohit Mineral was telling that only. Look, whatever we have paid is only for goods. There is no service we are interested in. that in that case the coal was the product, okay, and in your case also you are not to pay tax on the services.
Okay, sir. Thank you very much. Thank you.
So, any last question? I think so. All satisfied, sir. Thank you very much, Raju bhai.
Thank
Yeah,
Thank you,
friends,
thank you.
today's session was very interesting in terms of full of educational, and Rajiv bhai has answered each and every question in a proper understandable manner. So we are calling Bhavin bhai to give a proper vote of thanks on behalf of member and Ghatkopar Study Circle to Raju bhai. Bhavin bhai.
Thank you, Yogesh bhai. Before giving vote of thanks, announcement of the next session. Members, next session will be on next Saturday, that is on 4th of September. It will be on internal audit under Companies Act. It will be delivered by our own member, young CA, C. Yagnesh Joshi, and for him, mentor will be CA Abhay Kamal. We request all the members to attend the same, and the timing will be 4 to 6 for that session. And in September, we'll have only 2 sessions because of festival seasons. Now coming to vote of thanks, Raju bhai, it was really nice to hear you. I can say it was always nice and good to hear you with your superb language, superb command on the language, and with explanatory power. So you have taken 8 sessions with in detail about the case laws, about the issues, as well as the explanations about the plus and minus things, everything, and also by the same time you also taken the issues raised by our own members and also guided us how to handle the same and how to plan the same. Thank you from bottom of heart. I'm really thankful to you, Raju bhai, and also thankful to you for suggesting this good type of different type of sessions. Thank you, and whenever we know that you are always there when we need you. Thank you, sir. Thanks a lot for your sessions. Thank you. Members, I request to please give a vote of thanks to Raju bhai. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Raju bhai. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you to each one of you, and thank you to the study circle for having given me opportunity from time to time. Thanks to each one of you, sir.
Thank you, Raju bhai, and
Thank you,
we
sir.
are closing today's session.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.